And we have our wonderful practitioner for the day, Buffy Finkel, who is going to give us our opening prayer.
Good morning. I open my whole being to Spirit as though Spirit needs the invitation. There is only one. There is only one energy, one creation, one thing. We got a lot of names for it. That word ineffable comes to mind. It is so big, there aren't enough words for it. And I call it God. I call it Spirit. I call it Source. And it's all there is. I am one of it, not separate from it. I don't have to do anything to be a part of it. There is nothing I can do to be separate from it. So today I know that. I know that's true for all of us, although there are days when we don't feel quite so connected. It is just not true. Always connected, always on, always of the one. And that one is wholeness and love and joy and peace. Wisdom, grace, you name it. So, if that one is that, then so am I. Then so are each of us. Without limit. Think about that, without limit. Think about the goodness that can be mine, can be ours. Think of the possibilities. And say yes. Join me in saying yes to new, to possibilities beyond my understanding, beyond each of our understanding, possibilities of good. Remembering I don't have to know how, I just have to know. And I let Spirit, God, Source, take on the job of how more good will arrive. And I look and I see it and I say, thank you. Every day, thank you, Spirit, for this good, for this warm cup of coffee, for this beautiful daffodil, for this not 8 feet of snow, or for this 8 feet of snow, depending on your perspective. I say thank you. Thank you for the perspective, I guess. That is the biggest thing. So thank you, Spirit, for that perspective, that joy and wisdom and laughter that imbues, infuses everything that I am, the way I overflow into the world, and the way I fill up with all those around me. Yes to that filling, and yes to that overflowing. All at the same time? Yes. So I release my word today into that law that already is doing it. Sometimes I feel like I'm the tail on the dog because I'm just now recognizing it's already done. Join me in saying, and so it is. Now we'll take 2 minutes to contemplate and then come back when the music begins. Thank you.
What we are talking about for this whole year is the idea of living out loud. Living, yeah, living out loud, being seen. And this month we're looking at the idea of cultivating authenticity. Brene Brown, I've read this before, but I read it again just as a good reminder. Authenticity is the daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. Daily practice of letting go of who we think we're supposed to be and embracing who we are. So our talk title today is it up there? Yes, it is. No approval needed.
Yes.
Yes. I don't need your approval. You don't need my approval. The primary thing that stands between us and our full authentic expression is our own thinking. The stinking thinking that I kind of referred to. And the primary thoughts that stand in the way are thoughts of our own unworthiness. Who am I to be brilliant and alive and all that, as Marianne Williamson said so long ago? And then those thoughts are accompanied by feelings of guilt and shame. Now, guilt by itself is not necessarily unhealthy. A present moment guilt can be simply an awareness that I'm out of alignment with my values. Right? I'm out of alignment with my values. Guilt becomes a problem when we cling to it. And when we identify it not as something about what we did, but as who I am. We use it to reinforce our already existing belief in unworthiness and in being bad or wrong. And we can't truly move into authenticity, into fully living out loud until we address this elephant in our headroom. Yes? We do have to address it. Our belief and our feelings of unworthiness and shame, which are probably a lifelong chatter in our thoughts and our feelings. Anybody besides me? Yeah? Yeah. So shame is a universal human experience, and like guilt, it can be a healthy response, where guilt is a response of the intellect when we become aware that we're out of line with our healthy values. Shame is the feeling that accompanies that realization. And as such, it can be a motivation to change. We need emotional involvement. You know, I knew for years, several years, that I should stop stuffing my face with so many desserts. But it takes getting a diagnosis that says, and if you do keep on, stuffing your face, you're going to lose your limbs, your feet, and your fingers, and your eyes, and all that stuff. And it's like, oh, no. That's not how I see myself, for the next 10, 20 years of my life. So there was an emotional involvement, and guess what? I don't do dessert anymore for the last couple of weeks. Yes? What's that?
Just as sweet as you've always
And I'm just as sweet as I've always been. Thank you. So our brain circuitry processes emotions in about 90 seconds. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And then it's done with that emotion. 90 seconds. That's a minute and a half. And it's done. Unless we choose to keep re-stimulating the emotion, clinging onto it, identifying it, not as a result of something we've done, but rather who we are, which is a process most of us learned as young children. Without a perspective that we have these days, we thought that I'm bad instead of just I did something that doesn't work. Big difference, yes? It's the feeling that accompanies the belief that there's something wrong with us that makes us feel unworthy and unlovable, which convinces us that if we just work harder, if we just try to be or do more, if we just change ourselves into something or someone more acceptable, often by what we think are other standards, yes? And it calls us to keep certain parts of ourselves, often our joy and our passion, hidden from others. If we can just do all of that, we will become acceptable and worthy and hopefully lovable. Breathe. So it's time that we face down that elephant or a roaring lion in our minds only to discover it's just a tiny mouse or a pussycat. When we're caught in the fear of that elephant, we look outward to everyone else, to standards set by others, to evaluate our own self-worth. You know, I deliberately wore these pants today because there's a standard that says you're not supposed to wear white or light-colored pants before Memorial Day, right? And so I know that you all are judging me. Not. But that sort of thing goes off in our minds, standards set by others. We use them to evaluate our self-worth when we can understand and unearth the roots of our feelings of unworthiness. We begin to untangle and free ourselves from those roots. Which is why, as messy and unpleasant as it is, to go digging in the dirt of our own unconscious, it's vital to our freedom and our self-expression. This is the cultivating part of cultivating authenticity. If you remember the very first week we did this, I said it's cultivating, which involves work. And so, taking a breath, we need to do that work. It's been said when you know your worth, no one can make you feel worthless. You know your worth. No one can make you feel worthless. It's also been said, if you want to know your worth, stop giving other people the calculator. We are spirit expressing itself. We are that infinite presence of love, of power, of passion, of joy. We are that. Say that. I am that infinite source, expressing uniquely as me. And that's wonderful. And I'm wonderful. So in the first creation story in Genesis, God declared all of its creation good. How much? All. Does that include you? Yes. And if we all knew that, I mean, really embodied that, really felt it, if we got jiggy with it, to quote an old Will Smith, our lives would be a very different experience than what we sometimes experience. So it includes us. We learned unworthiness and shame, but that's not the truth of who we are. You never see a baby just kind of brand new sitting there going, I wonder if it's okay to cry. Will I disturb anybody around me? Is it okay to mess my diapers now? Or should I wait for a while until it's the perfect time? You don't see babies doing that, yes? We learn. We learn unworthiness. We learn shame. Ernest Holmes says, all that stands between us and our good is a thing of thought. And our thought and unbelief in unworthiness is not real. Breathe that out. Let it go. Let it go. We are giving power to dusty old shadows when the light of truth is burning brightly. Within us, all around us. So as we face those internal voices, those old parents or teachers or siblings or bosses or spouses telling us of our unworthiness, we thank them for their misguided attempt at our self-protection, but tell them we're going to listen to a higher voice, a voice of truth, a voice that lives within me. As we say that, as we become aware of that, as we no longer give those voices power to run our lives, we stand, the shadow thoughts which we have stood between us and our authentic good dissolve into the nothingness and the non-reality that they truly are. Rather than shame and fear driving our light, we let the light of truth and love drive our life. Yes? Who's driving? We can look to others for input, and we can do that in one of two ways. One being unhealthy. It's an unhealthy fear-based way of doing it, to check to see if we're doing it wrong based on our self-doubts and fears, based on our belief in our unworthiness. So we can fearfully look to others for what we're doing, or we can come from a healthy self-worth and just out of curiosity do a reality check. Reality checks are good once in a while, yes? Okay. just to see if we're missing something due to the blind spots which we all have, just to see if somebody else has an even bigger and more wonderful idea than what we've conceived of. We do that not out of fear, but out of curiosity and understanding that none of us knows it all. Sorry. None of us knows it all. But we can do that out of love and out of acceptance for the authenticity of who we are. So as we recognize that we are inherently worthy, we're inherently worthy of love, of compassion, of belonging, of connection, all of that. We can express ourselves more freely without old stinking thinking ideas. I am the thinker who thinks the thought. We can express that without those old ideas getting in the way and keeping us playing small. So as we stop looking to others to determine our self-worth and thus our self-love, because if you don't love me, then should I love me? If I'm caught up in that trap, then no. If I'm free, yes, I still love myself. So we love ourselves, we expand from a different consciousness, creating different results in our lives. Imagine what it's like to come from that place of love and light and not be afraid of what other people are going to think of me. Neuroscientists tell us that we have two emotional quadrants in our brain, left and right hemisphere centers that are emotional. The right deals with present moment feelings. It's the kind of the be here now consciousness. It's just evaluating what's going on. Do I feel good about this? Do I feel good about that? It's just in the present moment. Am I too hot? Am I happy? Am I a little bit scared of what's going on? Just I'm noticing this right in the present moment. The left side emotion brings all the past feelings we've ever had into the present, constantly comparing and evaluating and judging and looking for danger. Its primary focus, which is not a bad one, by the way, is to keep us alive and safe. If we didn't have that, if we didn't have that recognition of being able to evaluate, none of us would be here. None of our ancestors would be here. But since we don't face the dangers of being dinner for a wild animal very much anymore, or invasion from the neighboring tribe anymore, it's now on the alert, looking for anything that looks like getting us kicked out of the tribe to which we belong. In other words, disapproval. That's what its primary focus is these days. Or having our comfortable worldview disturbed by new information and ideas. Oh, I hate that. Buffy and I are in a class on something called spiral dynamics. And spiral dynamics is all about greater levels of more complex thinking. And as we become more complex in our thinking, it challenges what we believe currently. And some of us, I don't necessarily mean us, but all of us, have difficulty sometimes moving into that next layer of more complex thinking. As we take a moment to step back from emotional reactions based in this part of our brain with practices such as taking a few deep breaths, practices such as counting to 10 before I go off on an emotional tirade. How many of us at some point in our lives wish we would have done that before we went off on the emotional tirade, right? And those processes can allow that 90-second cycling time to complete, letting the emotion go. We can re-engage with present moment reality and have enough time to remember who we truly are and the unreality of these perceived emotional dangers. A few years ago, I think I've shared this before, I had a minister on the minister's listserv who recorded a 10-minute video to me, yelling and screaming at me. And he said as he started it, "This is my 6th attempt to make this video. I'm so angry that I've had to do it 6 times. And I thought to myself, I've been that angry. But by the time I get to the 3rd or 4th attempt, something else kicks in and says, is this really the best use of my time, my energy, all that? And for some reason, that person didn't. They're taking a breath. So these processes allow us to re-engage our positive emotions. We have both what we call negative and positive emotional circuits. One life affirming, one life negating. We get to choose. Again, I am the thinker who thinks the thoughts. I get to choose which circuit I want to engage with and play with. We've all had things triggered. That's okay. Which one do I want to stay with? And I've used reminder mantras such as, I've shared this with you before, my mother doesn't live here anymore. When I hear that little judgmental voice in my head going, you shouldn't do this. Or when I'm having an upsetting argument with somebody who's not in the room. I'm ashamed to admit that. I'll remind myself, I'm the only one here. It's a wonderful way of bringing myself back to center. As we pay attention to what those emotions feel like in our body, we'll choose to stop doing some of those emotions, to stop triggering off our fight, flight, or freeze response, or fright response, and dumping all those toxic chemicals into our body. We'll allow those emotions to have their 90-second cycle and move on. Ernest Holmes says, when we stop condemning ourselves, the condemnation of others will not reach us. When we stop condemning ourselves, and he says that's the worst thing we can do to ourselves is condemn ourselves. And when we stop doing that, the condemnation of others will not reach us. The final thing I want to say is that we can't do this work alone. Sorry to all you rugged individualists who, I can figure it all out on my own. No, you can't. And there's two reasons. Number one, we often can't see our own shadows. They hide in our blind spots. They often are our blind spots. You know, I shared before that an exchange I had with Linda Bremer several years ago where I was voicing something that just felt perfectly normal to me, and it was something along the lines of, I can't afford this. It was when I was buying my Miata. And she finally turned around and looked at me and says, do you want to keep affirming that? And the statement to me was just a perfectly normal thing that I had been saying for years. And all of a sudden, it was just like that little slap in the face, you know, the Leroy Jethro Gibbs head slap, for those of you who are NCIS fans, saying, do you really want to keep affirming this? And it's like, oh, duh, no. So it takes support from others who are both honest and trained to spot such beliefs. Fortunately, we have people like that. They're called, what are they called, Buffy? Practitioners, yes. And we have a bunch of them. We have 7 of them in all, plus myself, and I see 3 of them sitting here. The practitioners always sit on this side. I don't understand why. It's interesting. It's just interesting. So we have people who can support that. You can have honest and supportive friends who are willing to tell you the truth, like my friend Linda did, to help us to see them. And then number 2, the second reason we can't do this by ourselves, Brene Brown says shame needs 3 things to grow out of control in our lives: secrecy, silence, and judgment. We need to share our experience. Shame loses power when it's spoken. You know, I kind of talked a minute ago about that I have arguments with people who are not in the room. And I've shared that once or twice before, and I've had people come up to me and say, I do too. Many of us probably do that. And so it's like, oh, I'm not so weird, strange, or unlovable because I do that. Shame is held in place by our shame about it. And as we break the silence and compassionately admit our humanity, nudge your neighbor, say, you're human. We are freed from the bonds of shame, and we stand in the light of wholeness, which we truly are. When we know our innate worthiness, we'll stop seeking external validation and listen to that authentic voice that's within us, the authentic voice within us. Not just the whim, but the authentic voice within us, which guides us into authentic expression of our true self, the one that knows it's perfect and whole right now, as are all beings. So this week I invite you to do 2 spiritual practices. Number 1, notice where you devalue yourself. Maybe you tell yourself how stupid you are when you make a mistake. It's one thing to make a mistake. How many people have made mistakes at some point in their lives? All of us, yes.
I thought I did once,
But you were wrong, yes. So everybody excepting Buffy. There's a difference between noticing I made a mistake and saying I am stupid. And oftentimes we learn that. Or maybe you feel that what you truly want doesn't matter and that you shouldn't even want it in the first place. Those are lies we tell ourselves based on the lies we believed. And so just notice that this week. Pay attention if you're doing that. Just pay attention to that voice within. And then secondly, the voice within, I don't mean the authentic voice within, I mean the chatter box within, yes? Yes? Okay. Then the second practice is after paying attention to that, after uprooting the lies, it's time to spend time remembering the truth, the capital T truth of who you truly are. Your infinite love, your infinite beauty, your infinite intelligence in form, individualized as you, me. Yes?
Yes.
That's the truth of us. And this is not just a nice idea about our perfect spiritual self. It's also the truth of our human self exactly as we are. Breathe that in. So are you willing to play with those 2 practices this week? Yes. Notice where you're going off track, where you're holding thoughts of unworthiness, and say to them, I don't choose to partake with you. I'm not going to dance with you anymore. And then choose to remember the truth of who you are. We good? Yes. I'm going to close with 2 quotes. The first one comes from Reverend Alan Bukas. He says, coming out of the shame closet so we can see it and ourselves in the light allows us to see shame for the lie that it is. To take back our power from its attempt to control us and keep us hidden and step into our inherent worthiness as a spiritual being having a human experience. The second quote comes from Ernest Holmes from this thing called You. He says, you belong to the universe in which you live. You know, oftentimes we feel like strangers in a strange land, to quote an old book title. You know, I don't really belong here. We do belong here. We belong here. He goes on to say, you are one with the creative genius, back of this vast array of ceaseless motion, the original flow of life. You are one of that. You are one of that. There is something within you beyond all doubt and fear, something which has never been limited by your acts or destroyed by your feelings. This is the only something that can make you whole. I invite you to play with that this week. We have an affirmation to remind us of that. Say this with me. I am free. I let my authentic light shine. One more time. I am free. Now, I want you to stand up and say it like you really mean it and believe it. Get your body involved. I am free. I let my authentic light shine. And so it is. And take a look around. Let's see if we can we squeeze that just a little more, because they're a little squeezed over on this side there. So we can expand and make room for more people. That would be wonderful. Look around at the faces and the hearts and the beingness of God. God in form.
Thank you, Shanine.
Yes. Take a breath. I remember that there's one source, one life, Only one. And whether we like it or not, that life is good. Doesn't always mean it shows up in the way that we want it to show up, but there is a good beyond our idea of good that is this life. Because that life is all that there is, each of us already is one of that life. As Buffy said earlier, no invitation needed. We already are a member of the club, with full rights and privileges and responsibilities. And so I speak my word, that this week we play more fully as our authentic self. We let go of the shadows of the past and let them no longer take our power away. We take our power back and establish ourselves as the authentic beings that we truly are, God in form. We create light and love and health and wholeness and beauty and joy just by being who we are. And I'm grateful for each of us who says yes to this, for each of us who participates in this process, and know it blesses us and it blesses the world all around us as we do so. And I release this word into a law, a process that moves it into form and expression and experience in, through, and as our lives and the lives of others around us, and let it be. And it is already so, and we simply acknowledge and affirm that by saying, and so it is.